Alrighty, so today we're going to be working on a commissioned piece. This is the idea we're going for, sort of a Fang looking shape, and with this, going for a rusticated top half here with my Ent rustication, and then leaving this bottom section smooth and polished, so it kind of looks like, you know, a fang or like a dragon's horn or something like that. Should turn out pretty cool if all goes well. This here is the block that we'll be working with. You know, if you never know when you're carving a pipe, sometimes you'll drill into it and all of a sudden there's a giant pit in the chamber and then you gotta toss it, or you'll be carving down the sides and boom, got a huge pit in the side, and you can never really tell for sure. Sometimes you can kind of get an idea if there's gonna be any bad spots in it based on how the grain looks, you know, and how it would have grown around a pit. Can't really see anything that tells us any information on that on this block, so we'll just have to see when we get there and keep our fingers crossed that we don't have any issues, because that is always a very heartbreaking moment when you get a couple hours into a pipe and the block becomes useless. So hopefully that doesn't happen. So here we go. Pretty good. And I start with the Forstner bit here. I like to just drill about a ½ inch down into the bowl before I go in with my actual chamber bit. It just seems to make the drilling go a little bit smoother. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of a lip where the Forstner bit and the chamber bit maybe just were kind of a tiny bit off. We're talking like ½ millimeter of a little lip there. But you can very easily go back in with sandpaper afterwards and smooth that out to where it's not even noticeable. I'm just setting my plunge depth on here to where the sketch on the outside has the chamber meeting the airway. Okay. I'm actually gonna collect up some of these briar shavings here for a project that I'm going to be doing at some point. Stay tuned for that. Now for this next part here, we're gonna drill for this piece here. Since we have this really rough face here that we're keeping, I'm going to be drilling sort of a countersink hole here that's going to allow the stem to sit recessed inside of it. So I use depending on the pipe, sometimes I'll change the diameter. This one I believe is a ½ inch, and that's kind of the standard one that I use for doing this. The headlamp really helps to eye this up when you're doing it. So this is a 5/16 bit, and that is what the Delrin will go into. This will be attached to the stem. where we want to be. Now for this, since this airway, it doesn't go straight in the same direction as the mortise does, it's going to come at an angle this way. That way it intercepts the bowl here at the bottom. So we actually have to adjust the angle here. Now this part's a little tricky because you want to make sure everything stays lined up. So you just don't want to lose that. So now I'm going to put in my 1/8 of an inch drill bit. You might notice that I currently have it chucked up to where, you know, it's not actually even long enough to reach the bottom. I actually might even put it up a little more. The reason, actually no, I think that's good. The reason I do that is just because the 1/8 can kind of bend a little bit when you start drilling. And so this is to kind of help minimize the bend. If it's out longer, it'll bend more. If it's up higher or up, you know, a shorter amount sticking out, there's less likelihood that it'll bend when you're getting it started. Okay, so I actually have to let this out a little more because it's hitting the plateau bit there. Let this out a little more now. I'm actually going to end up switching over to a longer bit here in a moment too. But again, the shorter one just allows less bend that can happen. Okay. Go ahead and set our depth here. So now I have this chucked in. It's a 5/32 drill bit, and I just like to start with the 1/8. I feel like it just kind of gives it a little more control. So now I'm going in with what the actual airway will be, and release that a little bit. Successful start to the pipe. Get moving on to drilling out the stem. This is my shipment of stem blanks. So I'm gonna go ahead and open it, do kind of a little unboxing video, I suppose. And here we have all our blanks. You can kind of see them in there. We'll go through them real quick. Right here. Never used this one before, so I'm pretty stoked about it. It looks pretty cool. I figured I'd give that one a shot. Then I've used this guy before. This is a pretty sick looking piece. A couple blues here. Ah, that's sick. It's always cool when you get some real intense squiggly lines in these kind of blanks. This one's cool too. This one here is for a commission. These two are also a couple favorites of mine. That's really cool right there. Yeah, just awesome. Look at those things. Just sweet. And I haven't used this one before. That's pretty sick. Kind of like tigery, little tiger looking. Pretty sweet. I like that a lot. That's going to be cool. This one, I've used this before. This is another personal favorite. Super cool. This one's called Emerald Forest. This particular one, yeah, about 2 of these. One of these is going to be for a commission piece. Another blue one. I really like my blue ones with these sort of lines going through them. Super cool. Just a nice kind of classy look. And a purple one. I've used this before. Switching it up from the sort of darker colors here. Got a nice bright sort of golden orange one here I thought would be cool. Maybe for a volcano or something. Oh yeah, actually this one I was really excited about too. Probably gonna do a volcano with this one too, just because it's very volcano-y. A lot of pretty sweet blanks here to work with. Excited about that. That's it for that. So, and then, oh yeah, this one here is actually going to be the stem that I use for this pipe. I was just like, yeah, it's for a commission. It's for this commission. So that's what this one will have here. It should be pretty dang cool. Alrighty, so this next step, we're going to cut the stem down to the size that we want. Just trying to kind of get an idea of what looks right, you know? You know, I think I'm going to go just a hair longer. I'm going to do right at 4 inches. Not a huge difference, but sometimes that little bit makes a big difference. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get this cut. We're going to start off with a Forstner bit here. Smooth like butter. Then I'm going to my tapered bit. This is a 5/32s, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill it down to about within a 1/4 inch of the end of the blank here, and then I'm going to go in with my 1/16 and finish it off. Now the tricky part is that my drill press here only has about 3.5 inches of plunge that it can do. Actually, I think it's a little less than that. Anyways, so we're gonna have to drill what we can, and then we're gonna have to get a little spicy with it. Okay, so that's as deep as we can go there. So now what we kind of have to do, so I'm going to take a look there. Okay, so I want to go, yeah, about another 1/4 inch down. So I'm going to raise this to what seems about right. And then we're going to go from there. One 1/16. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, so next up here, we're going to rough up the inside of here, rough up a little bit of one of these ends, cut it down, and then we're going to epoxy that in there, and that'll give us our tenon for connecting to our stummel here. So I got this little, it's just an old file that I ground down to a point, and then I use that to sort of gouge up the inside. I like to try to hit it at a bit of an angle, and then I'll come back the other way and do the same thing, so I kind of got a crisscross sort of pattern there. I feel like that just adds a little extra strength for the, you know, epoxy to grab into. If all you do is straight up and down lines, then I feel like in theory it could rip out a little easier, so this is just how I do it. So this is just the old hacksaw blade. Trying to clean out all the little loose debris. Just a little scroll saw blade. These scroll saw blades can be real handy for a lot of different things when it comes to stem work. Doing this, or even the slotting process. Cool, that looks good to me. So that's about the space that we have in there. So I want to make sure I'm not roughing this up past that. So I kind of just measure that. Boom. Hold it to here. Okay, so that's the max that I could go, right? So then I'm actually going to go a little less than that just so I have some wiggle room. Usually do this on the edge of my workbench here. I'll just use this. Okay, I think we're good there. I think I'll cut it down to right about there, and then we'll get it epoxied in. Okay, there's our piece right there. I'm just gonna grab a little piece of some old sandpaper. Okay, there we go. Don't need a whole lot for this. Try to do pretty equal amounts. And then we're gonna mix this up really, really good. So now I'm gonna do a very, very light coat on the inside here. Up here. I'm gonna go ahead and clean. We're gonna let that sit now. But look at that. Starting to look like a pipe. Gotta throw these away. Now we'll go back and use the tapered 532s bit. Put it in there. There we go. And there we have a official pipe. But we got a lot more to do. Let's get to shaping down the stummel. Alrighty, so at this point, we are far from done with the shaping process. Basically, at this point, I'm going to go in with my Dremel with one of these little guys, little kind of mini drum sander things, before coming in with hand files and sandpaper and really start refining the shape. Gonna use the Dremel one more time here, just to clean up this little section here. Got this little kind of very fine point diamond bit, so we're gonna do that. This is the bit that we're gonna be mostly using on the Dremel. Gonna put this bit back on and just kind of see about cleaning up some of these little kind of sections there. So. Got some 800 grit here. Alrighty, so we are ready to put our first layer of stain on this thing. Man, this thing's looking awesome. I'm super excited. We're gonna let that sit for about a day or so. In the meantime, we'll see about getting to work on this stem here. It's gonna be so cool. Brian, come on. Knock it off. Alright, so we're going to slot the stem here, and I like to get it started with the same bit here that I did the rustication with. And I have a little kind of line drawn on there, and we're not going to go super deep with it, just kind of get a little line there going. So. Alrighty, so next part, got this little slotting tool here. You can buy them just like this. I get mine off of Vermont Freehand, and I just stuck one into a little dowel here as a handle. So yeah, I'll spend some time with this now. Next thing I do with the button there is I'm going to take some sandpaper. I'm just going to cut myself a little strip here. About 3 or 4 inches long or so. And then I like to fold it over. And snip it down at an angle there. And we're just going to kind of use this to smooth out the airway here. So you gotta get, sometimes getting it started, if that opening isn't super wide just yet, this can take a little finessing. But once you get it going, it goes a lot quicker. Okay, we're going to move up to a higher grit here. This is 180. is some 800 grit. Alrighty guys, so time to start sanding down some of the smooth areas here. Let's see. I think maybe just a splash more blue. Probably looks really dark right now. Once we buff it and stuff, it's going to brighten up a bit. But I'm actually really excited to see how this looks. That color was looking real cool when I was putting it on. Just a real deep greenish color with a tinge of blue in there, you know. I think this is going to look awesome. Went ahead and epoxied together the tamper for this piece. Went ahead and already took it to the belt sander. Sorry I didn't film that part. Just kind of felt like getting moving through this faster, not dealing with the camera and all that. But I'll show you a little bit of just sanding it down and finishing it and everything like that. So So here's where we're at with this. Just going to sand the smooth sections down a tiny bit here, and then we'll throw some of that blue and yellow together. Try to match the color that we already dyed the pipe. Probably should have taken note of what parts that was, but shouldn't be too hard to get it again. So. While we wait for the tamper to dry, I think we'll go ahead and get the stem bent here. We'll do that before we buff this and finish the rest of the pipe. So we get a nice little bend going on here. Not going to be a ton. Pretty on point with what we had sketched out. Pretty cool. This thing's looking awesome. Oh boy, we are starting to look nice. So not quite done with the finishing process yet. Next step is I'm going to use this stuff right here called Decatur Pipe Shield. And this is really helpful for getting into the rusticated areas. If it's not a rusticated pipe, you really don't need to do this. And I actually just came across this a few years back, and I've been really enjoying it. I feel like it works really well. I use a toothbrush for this most of the time, but I'm gonna start it off with the pipe cleaner to kind of get into the deeper grooves. Take the stem off here. Stem looking awesome. Now you go pretty light with this. A little bit goes a long ways. Just start kind of brushing it on. Okay, we're gonna let that sit a little while, and then we'll hit it with the buffer wheel again. And then we'll do the same thing here with the tamper. Okay, so we are getting very, very close to done with this pipe. One of the final steps is going to be the bowl coating here. And the way I've done it for years is just using some pure organic maple syrup. Take a Q-tip and just I like to go very light with my coat. So I just don't want it to be too thick. All it is to add a little extra protection, helps with the break-in process, and then I also just enjoy the finished look that it gives, as opposed to just the raw bowl in there. So we're putting our maple syrup on, and then we're going to pour in some charcoal powder, and that's going to be what sticks onto the walls. So now we're just going to let that sit there for a few hours. Usually I'll let it sit for a whole day or so. Really all it needs is a couple hours. I think while we wait on that, we're going to go ahead and tidy up the workbench here. Got one last little finishing touch for the stem, actually. So I'm going to take a pipe cleaner. I'm going to get some tri-poly compound on it. I'm just going to stick it in there. This should just help clean that out, kind of polish up the inside. So this has been sitting several hours now. So we're going to go ahead and empty that out. Well, there we have it, folks. This beast is finally done. I'm beyond stoked with how this turned out. Just looks so cool. Let's go ahead and put a stamp on there, a stamp on here. Call it a day. Absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. I love this deep green. It's probably really hard to tell that color from the video, but it's just a nice deep green. It's basically the color of the darkest sections of the stem here. Just want to say thank you if you made it to the end of this video here. Thanks for sticking with it. I know this was a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed watching the process. Hopefully we'll be trying to do videos more regularly. I'd like to, if possible, do, at least one a month. It'd be awesome to be able to do 2 videos a month. It just takes a lot of time. So yeah, please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more. I would greatly appreciate it. And hopefully I'll have another video done here before too long. Make sure to go check out my Instagram page, Sherwood Pipes. That's where I post, available pieces and projects I'm working on and whatnot, so you can keep up with my work there. Post there a lot more frequently than I do on YouTube here, so go check that out. And if you're interested in getting something done or seeing what I have on hand, shoot me a message. Anyways, that is all for now, and I will see you in the next video.